4 reasons to object to this proto-Gnostic view. Again, sin is inconsequential. This objects to it because sin does indeed matter for 4 reasons. Number 1, if we live in sin and treat it inconsequentially, we will not have confidence at the return of Christ when we see him and faith becomes sight, and we will be ashamed of how we lived here. Number 2, we have to remember, Jesus came, according to verse 5, to give us power over sin. So sin does have consequences. Again, proto-Gnostic view, sin is inconsequential. No, Jesus Christ came so that we could have power over sin. Number 3, if we don't abide in Christ, we are not experiencing his reciprocal fellowship, his reciprocal intimacy. We talked about that in chapter 1, verse 7, and it's the key to the entire passage in 3:6. If we abide in him, we will not commit sin. And then there's one more. And then number 4, which I think is on my other side. Number 4, when we do sin, we exhibit characteristics of the devil as opposed to Christ, which is the reason why Christ came. He came to destroy the works of the devil. And when we do sin and we live according to the flesh, we're exhibiting the devil's characteristics more than we are of God's. And if Christ came to not only deliver us from the penalty of sin, but also to give us the power over sin, then we should seek to overcome sin in our life. So what does this passage mean? This passage essentially means that when a believer abides in Christ, when we are remaining in fellowship and harmony and unity and intimacy with Christ, we're able to reflect the characteristics of God because we are walking in the Spirit through the new man which was born from above or born again. And then in abiding, we have the ability to produce fruit, maintain an eternal focus, and then to have confidence at his coming. I want to show one last thing to prove this case. I want to look at some of the last words Jesus said before he was arrested in John chapter 15. John 15:11, Jesus Christ said, "These things I have spoken unto you, that my joy might remain in you and that your joy might be full." He says this in John 15, verse number 11. He said, "These things I've written." Okay, naturally you want to ask, okay, what things? What'd you just say? In this passage, notice, abide, 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 abide. Chapter 15, Jesus sums up his passage. These things I've spoken unto you. Why? So that my joy might remain in you, abide, and your joy might be full. What is the key to have the fullness of joy? By abiding. That's exactly the whole purpose of this letter of 1 John. The key to have the most joy in our life in the believer is by maintaining our fellowship with Christ. And that comes through abiding. And that's what this passage 3, 4 through 10 is talking about. It's refuting the fact that sin doesn't have any consequences. It's refuting that false teaching in his day and the teaching in our day with hyper-grace, because Christ came so that he could destroy the works of the devil, that we can have power over sin, and that in doing so we could abide in the light so that we could have the fullness of joy. That's what this passage is about. This passage has nothing to do on whether you're a genuine believer or not. This passage is all about how we can maintain this closeness, this intimacy, and this joy in our life.